Acton in Focus is brought to you by Gallant Insurance Agency.
Welcome to Acton in Focus. I'm Vivian Birchall, your host, and my guest today is Pete Henry. Peter Henry, is that your preference, or Pete Henry?
Peter is fine. My mom calls me Peter, and I'm usually in trouble when she calls me that, so you could call me. You could call me Pete, and then I won't feel like I'm in trouble.
I want to be respectful of the way you call yourself.
I appreciate that.
This is Peter Henry. He's the owner of True West Brewery, and again, he will tell us what the real name of the brewery is. But we're here to talk about craft beer industry in this Commonwealth and also in our town of Acton. Welcome to the show, Peter.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, what's the name of this business?
True West Brewery is the name. It's inspired by a play by Sam Shepard, which was a play about brothers, and having grown up in Acton and having done this with my brothers. So my brother and I are the owners, and our youngest brother engineered the entire brewing system for us. And,
oh my goodness.
And has contributed recipes to us as well. We thought it was an appropriate name.
And what led you to open a brewery?
After school, after college, I had run restaurants in a couple large cities, and then having grown up in Acton, I lived in New York City and LA and Aspen, and had kind of thought that no offense to Acton, but it would be the last place I would ever wind up being, because I had visions of preferring a big city. But as soon as you have a child, Acton's a great place to be. So my son's 15 now, and so as soon as we knew that we were going to have kids, we came back to Acton. And having grown up here, we knew that this type of brew pub concept or idea was something that the town really, really needed. And it was when we put the business plan together and we decided on the location, it was interesting because right about the same time, the person that we referred to each other as the other Peter, so Peter was doing Rapscallion about the same time, and we opened within just about 18 months of each other. So
okay. I was doing a little bit of research, and I was shocked by the number of craft beer companies in the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
What has caused the trend that we have today, and what is that trend with craft beer?
Well, I think there's a ton of them, but I think if you look at, so our brewer, Scott Houghton, who you just met a little while ago, has been in the business for probably about 30 years, and he had worked at the Beer Works in Salem as a brewer, and then had done some time consulting in Europe, and had come back and worked at some major breweries. But when he talks about when 30 years ago when he was working, there was something to the effect of 250 craft breweries in the entire country, and now we've got literally 17,000 of them within the Commonwealth, according to the Mass Brewers Guild. We're set to have another 20 open in the Commonwealth
by the end of this year.
By the end of this year,
right?
And just the sheer number of different options and varieties. A lot of people liken it to what wine did, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got the same types of varietals, the same types of microclimates around hops, around malt, and so there's really infinite possibility from a flavor profile. And you find one that you appreciate, one that you respect, and then also some things you want to experiment with. and that leads to a lot of creativity. So.
Speaking of flavors, I've heard that certain beers go well with certain foods. Is that the case? And if so, what beers go well with what food?
So that's a great question. So as a brew pub, we pay a lot of attention to what beers go well with what foods. That's why, so for example, IPAs are all the rage. We happen to have 3 on right now, which is a rarity, but it's also a summertime thing. So we have 3 different profiled IPAs that we're running right now. But we also have our Brown Bess, and that's an American brown ale, which is modeled after my youngest brother from his brewery, 7th Settlement, had done an American brown ale that had won a gold medal at the Great American Beer Festival. And he brought a lot of that knowledge to us when we started our brewing operation. So that was actually the first beer that we ever brewed here. And it's something that's stayed a staple. So an American brown ale being a staple and being wildly respected and appreciated by our by the community, by our fan base, is not the normal type of beer. Around here it's an IPA or a golden ale. But because we're a brew pub and because we've got fantastic burgers, that brown ale goes great with a burger. So it has just been kind of a universal pairing for us. And
I guess I have to try that one of these days.
Yeah, definitely.
After work.
Definitely.
Yes. And speaking of your brother, how did the two of you decide to run the business together? As siblings?
Well, I think that we, for the most part, we all get along really, really well, and that's a part of the name. Is it's brothers that are very, very different in nature. We're very different people. We bring very different things to the business, but I think together we're a pretty complete package. When we split apart, we're a little bit maybe I wouldn't say deficient, but we certainly complement each other well. My brother was running a brewery in New Hampshire at the time, my youngest brother. And we loved the concept and we loved what he had done up there, and we recognized a real opportunity to do it here in Acton. And when Village Works started being built, I was spending a lot of time in Germany for work, for my other job, and we would go to beer gardens in Hanover and a couple cities where I would be.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was good. So after work, we'd go to a beer garden, and then I would always notice. There was one particular one that we would go to, and they would have all the beer vendors across one side and the food vendors across one, and it was all in this stockade fence. And you would walk in, and you'd go get something to eat, and you'd get a beer, and you'd sit down with your colleagues, and you'd be chatting. And there were a bunch of picnic tables kind of in the middle of it. And then off in one corner, there was all these picnic tables that had been dragged over, and there was always a big, loud crowd over in one corner. And I remember asking one of my colleagues, what's going on over in that corner? Why is everybody over there? And he said, well, go open the gate in the corner and see for yourself. So I walked over and I opened the gate, and inside the gate happened to be the stockade fence went up by another 6 feet, but it was this big, massive playground, and it was just teeming with kids. And outside the gate was all their parents having a beer at the end of the day, and the kids were playing together, and the only way out of the playground was through that gate back into the stockade fence. So when they started building Village Works, we looked across the street at Gardner Field and realized that we had an opportunity to do something akin to that, and have a front deck and that overlooked a playground, and kind of I guess dovetails into what Paul Swiden and the team have done with Friends of Gardner Field across the street, where they're about to renovate that park this year. One of the parts of that, they'll take the hedge down and put a nice stone wall up, and we'll kind of have that vision realized, where you'll be able to sit on the True West deck, let your kids play on the brand new playground next summer, and enjoy a beer while they're playing.
That is such a big vision, and it's fun. It's amazing how you guys came up with the concept. It's brilliant.
Thanks.
Just getting back to business as a craft beer industry, we've gone through the pandemic and the effects of the pandemic. So how did that affect your business and the craft beer industry in general?
It was pretty crushing to a lot of people. And I think we, as a business, were uniquely positioned in that because we're a brew pub, we had never done a lot of takeout. We do 2 takeout orders a night normally before the pandemic. And our overall revenue from 2019 to 2020 was down 43%. But if you looked at it in terms of, we basically started a brand new business, which was takeout food. Our takeout business was up about 4,000%. So that's the way we prefer to look at it, is not the down in revenue overall, but the fact that we had to reinvent ourselves and become a completely new animal. And we had a lot of people that live locally that could walk, a lot of people that would stop in. We had to kind of reconfigure the entire brewery and the entire tap room and to work with social distancing and to work with curbside pickup, and modified a lot of our point of sale to make it touchless, and we were constantly sanitizing even more than we ever had. But it caused us to think about our business in a different way, and we did a ton of growler sales. So all of our beer is consumed on site. Everything that we do in the brewery, we don't distribute at all. We just, quite frankly, can't make beer fast enough to keep up with even just beer here in the brewery, because of the size of our plant and because of the size of our staff. But the pandemic caused us to really think about possibly bringing in a mobile canning line and doing to-go canning. But what happened was there was a massive aluminum shortage and canning shortage across the industry, and the large breweries that did full commercial distribution were having trouble getting packaging. So breweries our size would have had an even harder time with that. So we decided to kind of double down on the growlers, and I was very fortunate. When we order growlers, we order about $10,000 worth at a time. We have a tractor trailer truck pull up with pallets of glass, and we've got a barn out back. If you go back there, it's just stacks and stacks and stacks of boxes of growlers and glassware and things like that. We luckily happened to have just gotten a big, massive order in right before the pandemic started, so we were well set up to go into the pandemic and distribute locally right off of our tap room using our growlers.
Yeah, you've answered some of another question that I was going to ask you about the creativity that had to kick in with the pandemic. But now my next question is, everyone is kind of worried about the Delta variant and what that might cause, or what trouble that might bring to our economy. Are you prepared for that, and if so, in what ways?
We are. I don't think anybody's prepared for what's going to happen, and I don't think that anybody knows or can predict, because if somebody knows exactly what's going to happen, then they're going to be the one. They're going to make a lot of money in whatever industry it is that they're in. But here at True West, so this week we started wearing masks again. It's kind of it was an unfortunate thing to ask of the staff, but we asked our staff to start wearing masks again. Guests are not required to wear them, and we're not under any type of executive order from the governor anymore. But we've just decided to do it because I think that we look at it as a courtesy to our guests when they come in, and we want to extend them that courtesy that regardless of what your perspective is, I won't use the word belief, I won't use the word opinion, I won't use the word, regardless of what your perspective is on the pandemic, there are people that feel more comfortable when they're in a business and the people are wearing masks. So that's what we've started doing again. We did get another shipment of glass in, so if it happens again, we're ready to serve and support a lot of the faithful that we've had here in the village that supported us through the pandemic and are a big part of the reason we're still here. We have just implemented a couple new features through our POS provider, which is Toast, which is actually based out of Boston. The reason we chose it is when we opened 5.5 years ago, we wanted our first part of our mission was as local as possible, and when it came to technology, the second thing was cloud-based. It just so happened that Toast happened to be cloud-based, came out of Boston, and the founding team is from Concord. So, and a lot of them come and eat here. and it's nice to get to talk software with them. So they've implemented a lot of new features into the POS, things like our touchless payment system, things like our order and pay, which we're about to implement, where you get a QR code at your table and you're able to, on your phone, order and have, you'll still have a server, but there'll be more delivering food, and you're able to order in real time off of your phone from your table and even pay your bill at the end. So you don't have to wait for a server to bring you your check, or you don't have to wait for them to return with your check if there's a line at the POS system or anything like that. It's caused our upstream and provider vendors to think about their business differently. It's caused us to think about our business differently, and I think driven some good things in.
Do you have different beers monthly or seasonally? And if so, what triggers those changes?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have basically 5 standards, flagships, right? Our Ruckus IPA, which is our best seller, and again, that's, I think, driven by the IPA trend, as it were. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. But Ruckus, our gold, our brown bess, the Hasek, which is our Czech Pilsner, and those will be the ones that you'll see on an Isaac, which is named after Isaac Davis. Those will be the ones that we do throughout the whole entire year. Then seasonally, we do, for example, of course, we'll do our Green Eyes, which is our dry Irish stout. We'll do that for St. Patrick's.
I think I was introduced to Green Eyes the very first time I came here.
Yes, yes. And then we'll do, because Scott, our brewer, has such a rich and deep knowledge of traditional European brewing styles. One of our, a couple beers that are really, really loved are our Light in the Sky, which is a Maybach, which we do which they would typically have for May Day or Frühlingsfest in Germany. We'll do a nice Oktoberfest, which he's actually brewing now, so that will be ready for October. And then in the winter, we'll do Belgian Triple, which is the Happy Abbot. It's a 9%, and we've got a couple people, and they know who they are, that really, really like the Abbot, and they spend the whole summer not complaining to us. I wouldn't say that they're complainers. I would say that they are people that give us a very strong opinion during the summer that we should brew it all year long for them.
Are you thinking about it?
Yeah, well, I know it would sell. So, but we try to make it special.
Right.
Sometimes a little absence makes the heart grow fonder. Sometimes,
Yeah, and when you are telling us that story, what I could think of is that you build relationships with your clients, and how is that important, or to what level does it impact your business? Because there's so many craft beer companies within the Commonwealth.
Well, I think the relationship is the reason to do it.
Okay.
Right? No, I think you hit on it really, really well. Especially to do it in the town you grew up in, where your parents lived, 10 miles away, still in the same house that when you were in school. I think it's because of the relationships. I would say the vast majority of the people that I've come to meet, having done this, have been really, really wonderful. It is funny that there are people that I might have graduated from high school with, but have not been, wasn't close with at that point. But they now live here and they have kids, and we've become really, really good friends. Good friends over a Hasek, and the ability to meet people that appreciate different styles of beer and have wildly varying perspectives, not opinions, not beliefs, but wildly varying perspectives on the pandemic or politics or whatever is going on, and to be able to have a conversation with them, and a nice, open, and honest conversation over a beer is a really, really wonderful way to, I think, contribute to the village.
Well, as we come to the end of this interview, what are some of the popular beers here?
Well, like I said, Ruckus is our #1 seller. That's, I think, for the people that are watching this that live in the town that do frequent us, They've probably all had it. If you're not an IPA person, then the gold is probably going to be, the nice light entry. People that come in and say, I'm not a craft beer person, I would drink a Bud Light, we would say, try a gold. If you like light beer, then hands down, our Bohemian Czech Pilsner, the Hasek, is probably one of the best examples of a true Czech Pilsner you're going to get. With all floor malts from Czech and all Saz hops from Czech. It really is absolutely fantastic. But then, you wind up with my personal favorite, which is Brown Best, the one we've talked about before. An American brown ale that we'll just do all year long because it sells really, really well, and it pairs with food fantastically.
Pairs with a burger.
Pairs with a burger, fantastic. You got it. And a beef on weck, which is a near and dear to a boy that was born in Buffalo, New York. Mm-hmm. Near and dear to my heart.
I guess I got to try that someday.
You do.
We got to come back here and try that.
The beef on weck, you got it.
Well, Pete, before I say bye, is there anything about the craft beer industry that we haven't talked about that you'd like our audience to know about?
Yeah, I think I think it's like you said, like we talked about. It should be something about finding something unique, finding something that you enjoy, finding some creativity. Not just in the beer, but in the the entire culture around it. There are a number of bills that have gone through the Massachusetts State House recently to help support craft brewers and smaller breweries like ourselves. Some that a number of our local representatives have supported us in and worked with us in. Jamie and Dan have been helpful in supporting us in those and co-signing and advocating for us with the Mass Brewers Guild.
And for our viewers, Jamie is a state senator. Jamie Aldridge, and Dan Senior is the state representative.
Yeah. They've been good partners and good representatives for us. There are the liquor laws in Massachusetts are very antiquated, right? So you're looking at blue laws and you're looking at rules and regulations that date back to a time that didn't know or have or understand what a craft brewery industry was, right? They had major packaging breweries, and then they had, a very small group of farmer breweries, and then some brew pubs, which is what we are. And now that we are so prevalent, there are different ways that we would like to be able to expand our business, which we're constrained by because of the way our license was built and the rules and regulations around how I can distribute, how I can't distribute, how I can engage with a distributor or can't engage with a distributor, all the way down to simple things like if somebody brings a growler in from another brewery, the glass bottle and wants it filled, until 2 years ago, legally we weren't allowed to fill it.
Okay.
And there's a cost to that glass that the consumer pays, and if they've got one, it makes sense to them to be able to reuse it, right? But prior to that, we weren't allowed to put our product into something that didn't have our label on it. That's changed. And that's consumer friendly. It's friendlier to us as a business because we get to make our own decisions about how we will or won't fill that growler. There are certainly some craft brewers out there that won't put their beer into a growler that's got somebody else's logo on it, and I completely appreciate, understand, and respect that. We've made that decision ourselves at times, but it's better that than an unhappy customer that doesn't understand that it's not necessarily my fault as a business owner that I can't put my product into that vessel. It's the state. It literally was a state law. So removing some of those barriers and things like that. I know some of them seem mundane, but they make a big difference when it comes to a business our size.
All right, we are going into the True West Brewery just to take a little tour. So come with us. So what is all this?
So we are a 10-barrel brewery. Behind you is what we call the brew house. So you're going to have, basically we go in a counterclockwise manner through the brewing cycle. So we start with hot liquor and our mash tun. It's a lot of fun to give tours to kids sometimes because when we were building this, my son was 10. He was 10 years old. And so he enjoyed the brewing process, that this was where he made oatmeal. So this is basically where we make wort, right? So we bring all the grain from back in the grain room through this auger into the mash tun, mash in, get it to the sugar level that you want, process it into the kettle, so it'll actually get pumped into the kettle here. This is where we'll do the boil and add hops. Add all the bittering hops will be done in the kettle itself. Then it'll be run through that plate chiller over here into one of our 5 fermenters. We have conical ale fermenters. We do some lagering, and actually the pandemic, one of the benefits of the pandemic was it gave us an opportunity to do some lagering in a true traditional style. Lagering, the word lager means to hold in German, and essentially we got to leave some of our lagers in fermentation for an extra couple months, which we don't have the luxury of typically doing because the real estate here is the real estate we're trying to get moving as quickly as we possibly can. But as my 9-year-old son would say, after it's in the fermenter, fermentation is where you introduce yeast. Yeast eats the sugar, and he would always say that it pees out the alcohol and it farts out the CO2. So you would actually get all of the fermentation creating the CO2 and bubbling. We don't have anything active in it right now. Well, we do. We're just not. It's done with the initial where it's actually pushing a lot of that off-gassing CO2 out. And then after that, we would actually bring it into our cold room, which is right over here. It may contain a brewer if we're lucky. No, not now. But if you're drinking True West beer here in True West, it typically has never hit a keg. The only reason that it would ever hit a keg would be if we were trying to move some beer out to get additional real estate to transfer another beer in.
All right, thanks for the tour. I think
Yeah.
that's it. I hope you had a bit of a glimpse into what happens behind the scenes before you drink your beer.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter, for being my guest on Acton in Focus. Thank you for taking us through your journey in the craft beer industry, for enlightening us about some of the details that we don't know, like how to pair burgers with his special beer that I have to remember to really get in my head.
Yeah. Brown Bess. You'll give her a try next time.
Brown Bess. And it's been an honor and a pleasure having this conversation with you today.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, and to our viewers, let's continue supporting our local businesses because they are the heart of our economy, local economy. We are one ecosystem. So thank you for watching Acton in Focus. Till next time.